Shadow is the byproduct of something that is cast from the light. There can be no Sonic without a shadow. There can be no Link without a Dark Link, no sun without a moon. Shadow is the inverse of what is seen on the surface. Yin is the overwhelming darkness that allows the Yang to be the positive driving force that it is. Heroes could not be without a villain. Villains could not be without heroes. What creates the hero, or the villain, is the need to be pinned up against the other. If one is missing, the other dissipates. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Matt 5, verse 44, from the King James Version of the Holy Bible. To love one's own shadow is difficult because of how near and unseen it is. The shadow is the unconscious, the parts that we hide in the dark, and choose to hide in the dark themselves. Carl Jung pioneered the shadow in relation to the psyche, and arguably, Carl Jung integrated his shadow by doing intensive labor towards building the Bullingen Tower. When I think of Carl Jung, I think of the intellectual that created the model of the psyche, not the day laborer that created a prehistoric castle with his own blood, sweat, and tears. Carl Jung himself didn't necessarily have the desire towards the material, yet he understood the importance it played in fueling the side that he did desire. Becoming fully integrated is keeping space for this desire and aversion, accepting both, then letting neither side be what you lean towards. We have no choice. To accept the shadow that is tied to us is to become a fully integrated human being. The parts of ourselves that we hide from the world and ourselves are put there to protect us, to serve us. If we can find the courage to shed light on those parts of ourselves, use things like anger, hatred, and contempt, we can use them for forces of good. We can have control over those parts of ourselves and not be blindsided by an unconscious arising of these parts whenever we are slighted or wronged. What makes a good villain, a good shadow, is that usually the motives of the shadow are completely understandable, relatable, and makes complete sense why the rejected would feel the way that they feel. To listen to the enemy is to listen to something that is a part of you. That is, to listen to yourself. The conscious and the unconscious, the good and evil, the yin and the yang are two sides of the same coin. When I was 12, my parents began a process of getting divorced that was nasty because of how much fighting there was and how much I was pulled in, as well as inserting myself into the arguing. Whenever I needed to go with my father, I would lash out and be overtaken by my anger and rage towards the world, which would be directed then towards my dad. Something I realized when I grew older was that anger and rage came from a good place. I cared about my mother and the way I felt about things, and anger was a form of protecting that. My dad wasn't a perfect person, but what my father deserved was healthy displays of anger. If I were to accept this part of myself earlier on, I could have made these displays a lot less painful and made my relationships with my dad and the rest of my family a whole hell of a lot better. Now anger is a close friend of mine. Anger tells me the things I care about and the actions I need to take to protect myself. And now, since there's an understanding of why I get angry, I can make the best decisions for me. Anger, to me, is an uncovered shadow that has been dissipated to shed light onto how I work. But I will always have shadows, and in this realization, I have learned to love the things I'm uncovering, the shadows I hold. If you are alive, you have a shadow. There is something, by focusing on this essay right now, that is having a shadow cast onto it. It could be the responsibilities that you're avoiding that I have now shed light on. Awareness of something creates the unawareness of another. To learn to live with our shadows, in the duality of light and dark, to understand that darkness ultimately cares about existence just as much as we do. We need to listen to the side we paint as evil. We need to understand we have the capacity to enact evil just as much as everyone else. We need to understand that we are just as evil as we are good. Quote, "The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends." From Friedrich Nietzsche. Thank you.